Welcome to the Voices of a Black Man. My name is Sherelle James, and today I have the pleasure of speaking with some really, really wonderful people. Trent Wilson, Sr., Lafayette Jones, and Jay Graves. The Voices of a Black Man is a place for people to one, just see and hear Black men. I looked in society and looked at the narrative of Black men being told everywhere, but what was missing was the Black man. Not necessarily that he wasn't saying anything, but we weren't seeing and hearing him on a loud enough platform. So this platform was created for us to understand what's happening, what's going on, that all Black men are not alike, that they come from various backgrounds, experiences, they have different dreams and aspirations. Not only that, that they are human, men, and Black. So I thank you, gentlemen, for being on today, for not just giving me some time this week, but coming back this Saturday to delve a little bit further into conversation. How are you guys doing?
Doing great.
Doing well. Doing well. Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Absolutely. As we get going today, this is about you guys kind of having this roundtable discussion. I'm just here kind of to facilitate what's happening. If you guys are ready, I am ready, and we're just going to dig right in. Sounds good?
Sounds good.
Sounds great.
All right. So I'm just going to throw the first question out there. In the midst of everything that's happening right now, society is at a very heightened level. And there's friends and there's enemies, right? We all have them, friends and enemies. And what I'm seeing is we are not being able to decipher between friends and enemies, because if somebody disagrees with us, we automatically are considering them enemies. And I'm saying as a society as a whole, not necessarily you, but just because they have a different view, we automatically begin to put them in the enemy category when maybe they are a friend or an ally. I want to get your take on this. Do you agree? You don't agree? Tell me where you guys are on this. Not all at once.
I'll just say this real quick. It's interesting you say that. I put a post out yesterday on Facebook, and I said, one thing about growth is the ability to take in other information as well as your own. So everything is not an attack. Sometimes if you can sit back and listen, you can learn some things. And so I don't necessarily, I can decipher who's my enemy by your tone, by your approach, by how you come at me. That's one thing. To be on the other side of a conversation, that's fine, because I think it's an opportunity for growth on both parties, because everybody, as we were discussing before we went live, we have different perspectives, we have different ideologies, we have different things, and they're formulated by how we are raised and how we were reared and our experiences. So sometimes and even as Black men, just because we're two Black men, don't mean we see things the same way.
Okay.
And I think that's where we get caught up. Oh man, he's not listening. Wait a minute. He has an opinion just like you. We may not agree, but let's see why. Let's get to the why. And I think to me, that's a challenge for a lot of men. It's a challenge for individuals, period,
Yeah, I would agree. What you mentioned there about getting to the why, that's actually something that we talked about on my session with CK is, I think we were talking about, the whole take a knee controversy, right? I have friends that are, you take a knee, it's because you weren't a starting position, it's because you weren't a great athlete, all this stuff. And it's like, it's disrespectful to veterans. Well, I'm a veteran, and I have a certain viewpoint. My viewpoint is I fought for your right to be able to take that knee, and it's nonviolent. But what I notice is that some people can have a really great dialogue, and it goes back to that ability to communicate and listen. And you may disagree, but at least listen and be willing to change if you if you learn something new. But what I find is that people just entrench, and they're not willing to listen. They're not willing to engage. They're not willing to communicate. And that's how I feel. And I'm not listening, and I'm just buckling in, and I'm just going to argue. And that doesn't get anybody anywhere. Whereas to your point, what I was saying the other day is get to the root cause of all of this. Like if people are taking a knee, like get past the fact that it's during, the anthem, get past the fact that it's, at certain events or whatever, and ask why, why truly is this happening? And then seek out people to talk to about it. Talk to friends who are on the other side. But that's where I think we have a lot of breakdowns. People won't seek that other opinion, maybe because they don't want to hear it, maybe because they don't want to be swayed. But I think it has caused a lot of problems, and a lot of what we're seeing today. It seems like we entrench in our views and then we just get combative. Versus, I love a dialogue. I hope people disagree with me because I'm going to learn from your disagreement.
Right.
And I may walk away and say, I still disagree with you, but at least I understand where you're coming from. And I get it. I have empathy. But it feels like we're not really doing that as a society today.
Well, there's a lot of emphasis on today. We're a lot more than today. We have been different people at different times, whether or not we are adolescents or teenagers or millennials or right on up the line to baby boomers. So so that's one thing. Another is, it's not just about today. We've been taking the knee for a long time. And you may not have been as vocal about it. We may have absorbed it different ways because we may not have been in a position to advocate something differently. Certainly impacted us. But taking a knee in some cases, and I'm not for the knee, has made us stronger. Also, sometimes what we have thought of as taking a knee really wasn't taking a knee at all. It was part of the course of life. And so you have to be able to distinguish why you got the promotion or didn't. Maybe you weren't qualified. Maybe you weren't smart enough. Maybe you didn't understand the political circumstances that you were in. But as you mature and grow older, as a combatant in the game, you learn to take a blow. Not fun, not right, but it's yours. And you have to respond accordingly. You can be mad about it all the time. You can have your mouth poked out. You can do something about it, go back to school, get some more education. You can get a mentor. There are solutions. And what I'm concerned about is how many of our young men and women and people in general, because we're all of those things, are stuck on someone has their knee on my neck. You can't spend all day and night thinking and worrying about that. You have to do something about it.
That's
and
right.
It starts
Agree.
with yourself.
I totally
Yeah.
agree.
Yeah.
It's, even these young men, I have the opportunity, obviously, to mentor and coach young males of all colors. Primarily black on the football team. And, I've heard those, not the same analogy because they're not at the intellectual level we are yet. But they, I can't do this, or this is going on. I'm like, whoa. Well, what do you need to do? There are resources. You have to learn to seek resources. We need to teach you. I need to teach you how to find resources. There are things for you. There's going to be injustices and there's going to be things that happen. That is part of life. It is not always because of what you look like. Sometimes, as you said, Mr. Jones, maybe you need a little more education. Maybe you don't fit the criteria that, I can have 5 quarterbacks, but only one can start. And there's a reason. I totally agree with that perspective. Yeah. But I think, as you said, that comes with maturity. That comes with some wisdom. That comes with some growth. That comes with some experiences. That we realize I can sit here, admire, and muddle and play the pity game, or I can say, get your knee off my neck because I need to move forward. And I think if we could start as black men, as men, start educating, helping, other men, young men, whatever, see that, we could be a valuable resource to them, because we are have gone through whatever experience, you're your own consultant. Mr. Jones, I'm sure with you, I was in the, industry, but it looks like, we've grown and we've had to endure.
Exactly.
So endure certain things. We've had to experience certain things. We've had to overcome certain things. We've had to communicate certain things. You know,
Yeah.
it is what it is.
Yeah, and the big thing is what you said there, and certainly, you know, it's interesting. You mentioned you're an educator, right, and a coach, and you know, I weigh mentorship heavy in this, you know,
Yes.
because I was not, you know, really influenced to go to college. Nobody in my family went to college. You know, it was kind of, you know, lower middle, working class. And, you know, I remember I walked in one day and I was like, hey, I'm going to go to the community college. I thought that was college, you know, and my parents were like, wow, well, that's great. You know, plumbers make a lot of money, you know, roofers make a lot of money. And it took people seeing something in me and pulling me aside and influencing me and saying, this is actually a road that you can take that'll help you in your life. Um, and some of those mentors were white, some were black, men, women. I mean, it took society, right? It took that village. And so I take that as something very serious for me personally today, to be not only that mentor for my child, but, you know, other programs. You know, I personally joined mentorship groups so that I can help as many people as I can. Because some people don't know what they don't know, and you're right. You know, they haven't taken those blows. They don't have the maturity level. So, you know, we're bombarded with so much anger. I mean, I don't watch the news anymore because it's just so angry, you know,
Divisive.
and yeah, and divisive. And so, you know, you get on social media and you see it, you know, and so there's so much negativity. And if you wallow around in that, you're never going to make your way out.
That's right.
Um, but you also need help pulling out of that, right? Like you said, as a coach, you know, you got to have those life lessons and teach those life lessons to some of those kids because they just haven't had them yet. And so I think, you know, sponsoring and mentoring is just so incredibly important. You know, one of the things that we were talking about the other day is that a stat that I found is that 68% of CEOs are white males, 2% are black males, 1% are black women. And so, you know, I've been through corporate America and I've been at the highest levels, you know, in corporate America. And, you know, the mentorship for people that look like me thinned considerably as I moved up the ranks. And so one of the things that I was curious about, and I don't have an answer yet, this is just something that I've just been kind of thinking about is, you know, how do you unleash that 2% to mentor people, you know, to say, hey, you're not qualified. Stop complaining, get an education. And you know what that degree does? It only allows you onto the field. You still have to compete to be that starting quarterback. And that means you got to do this. And that means you got to do this. And that means you got to do this. So don't wallow in it, but prepare yourself. But then also, how do we take that 68% and create sponsors and advocates out of that 68% of white males who are in that situation, who say, I am going to groom women and people of color to be my replacement. And here's what you're going to need. You need to learn P&L. You need to go get your master's. You're going to need to do this. And I'm going to help you shape that so that at least you have equal, you're equal on the playing field, right? Then it just comes down to, you know, who has the best experience and everything else. And is that a way that we can start to change that dynamic? But it all comes back to mentorship and sponsoring.
Well,
How many are willing?
part of the concern that I have, and more than concern, is that the structure in Black households has changed over time, especially over the last, we'll say, 2 generations.
Mm-hmm.
Number of children that are born into single parent households or having both parents at home has changed dramatically. I don't remember the numbers exactly, but I think you were all aware of that. And there is a Black women have done a particularly good job, especially single mothers trying to do both jobs. But all the evidence comes in pretty much that if you have the privilege of having one of each, and I don't mean necessarily a father or mother, it could be a grandmother or grandfather, or a substitute. In fact, you've got a better chance to have a different perspective. I often talk to Black women, and some Black men, the Black women in particular. Let's don't raise any sons children that no one likes but us. What I mean by that is there's a limit to pandering, not pandering, but there's a limit to how much you can do. There's some things that these young men need to do for themselves.
Yeah.
No matter how much the mother or father loves them, the child is still responsible. And so the idea is to pass that responsibility on. But if you go back into your childhood and look at your neighborhood, you can see there have been structural changes. There's some people that just don't actually have a chance to have the kind of mentoring you're talking about. They don't know how to get it. Sports has been a way.
Yeah.
Sports is I truly believe, because I did corporate America prior to coming into education. I talked about it when I started getting into education. My sons, I have three grown men, basically. My youngest is 21, but when they start in the school system, a couple things happened. That's when I wanted to be a part of it. And I was always coaching, I had the sports background, had the educational background, MBA and all that good stuff.
Wow.
But one of the things was, I just saw, as you said, Mr. Jones, that responsibility from those single parent homes and just the mindsets of these young men. And fortunately, as a coach, I have their ear. I mean, and even the parents say, hey, the coach, because kids, I'm sure, tell me things they would never tell their mother, father, grandmother. And they do it in confidence, and they do it with the understanding, knowing that I give them my heart. So I'm going to help you. I'm going to guide you. I might not say everything you want to hear, and that's not what this is about. But from my personal experience and how I've gotten to where I am, some of the things, the outlooks, perspectives, because as I told them, I said, I've been 16, I've been 17. You've never been 56. You've never been 40. So I have so my position allows me to try to give you some wisdom, and they typically are open to it, which again, and I'm sure it's because of the coach title, because I coach football, basketball, and track. So I'm engaged with these kids. I coach year round, and which is interesting. We talk about time, because typically I'd be at football doing something right now, but but because of that time and what I have, that responsibility, I made the comment to my wife before. I said, I can play a lottery ticket and hit for $100 million. I go right back to school on Monday, because my position and the responsibility of what I have is so great. I don't want to see our kids perish.
Yeah. Yeah.
There have been has been for maybe forever, but for a long time, people like all of us on the telephone, maybe they just weren't as articulate about it, but I grew up in a two-parent household. My father was a military type and very, very tough. He's a Tuskegee person.
Okay.
But my neighbor next door was a gentleman named Reverend Harris. And every time my father and I would fall out, Reverend Harris would be there to explain to me sometimes what the deal was. And it wasn't always my father. It was a lot of times it was me. Yeah. In my household, we owned a business. My father wanted me to work all the time. And I did, because that's the way it was. Mm-hmm. But Reverend Harris would explain to me what the benefit of that was. And then I'm sure he would speak to my father, because he was older, sometimes about, give him a break. Yeah. He might have been my father's kind of quiet mentor,
Yeah.
But mentorship is not new. It's just the ability to
True.
Oh, yeah.
articulate it and understand it. And we talk about it more than we have in the past, but doesn't take away its importance.
Right. Certainly not. And, and I was thinking about what you mentioned there is some people don't have those opportunities to even know how to find a mentor, right? And Trent, I was thinking about what you said before we jumped on the call around, COVID and your concern around kids who rely on the school system for meals. Yeah. So certainly, we know that there are those circumstances out there where, the parents don't know, or maybe they are a broken family, or, their community isn't one that is, been exposed to
Sure.
mentorship and things like that. And that's where, for me, I feel like when I look at my daughter and maybe what I feel like is my responsibility is to say, okay, how can we address that? How can we get to that community? So, I volunteer with SCORE, we started a program at Shaw for business planning. It's a 13-week program. We're getting ready to kick it off in September. And that was part of it because we had been doing business planning in the African-American community. And we noticed that there was just a huge gap. And at first there wasn't a lot of people coming in. There wasn't a lot of awareness. So we said, okay, we got to go into the community. We have to bring people from the community. We have to try to figure out a way to start to get in there so that we can bring that influence into that space. For me personally, what got me interested in college was a program for minority kids who showed an aptitude, but they knew that there wasn't this influence, and they took us up to Virginia Tech, and we got to tour the campus, and then we got to talk to students, we got to talk to professors. Then they took us to a football game. We got to experience that. They gave us some swag, and on the bus ride home from that, that's when I was like, oh, it's not Greensboro Tech. Oh my gosh, it's Virginia Tech,
Right,
and then I had another influence. But if it had not been for that program, Mr. Jones, to your point, I would not be where I'm at today, A, and B, I wasn't in that environment to really be influenced that way. Somebody had to come to me, and I hope that that's something that we can try to do more of. I don't, and try to tackle that.
That's why I always, because we know what the need is. And unfortunately, I feel it maybe, I need to expand my circle. I just seen some experience. So I'm saying, some of my executives, I've talked to guys about doing this, and they don't have time. They don't want to. And I always say, man, somebody helped you get to where you are.
Yeah.
Our responsibility is to give back. Don't talk about how bad the young black man is if you're not trying to help the young black man become a better man. I don't want to hear that. It's like, so roll up your sleeves, let's get dirty and do what we do. But it takes, I think sometimes, and I hate to say this, and I said this when I was talking, sometimes in our community, in black community, we forget. We get to our pinnacle. We live in our nice big houses. We're living comfortably. We have our stock options, our 401ks. Our retirement is laid out because maybe a white mentor or maybe somebody we learned along the way. We were open to information, because you have to be open to information to receive the information. I don't care how good it is. You have to be open to it. And at some point, the three of us probably were open to it at some point, because Mr. Jones, you're a little older than we are. You've gone through stuff I haven't gone through. And
you think I'm a little bit older than you?
You look good. You look good. You give off an air. You give off an air of wisdom.
Yes. And
as a 56-year-old man, I'm looking at you like, man, I want us to get together and have lunch. I just want to talk, and I really do. And I'm dead serious about that. I think I would love for us not to just make this. I'm enjoying the live. I'm enjoying what we've done, but just in the brief time I've been able to talk to you all, I'm like, why don't we try to schedule a monthly? We just get together, have lunch, chop it up a little bit, and see how we can affect our world. Because, I'm crazy. I'm a coach. I'm wide open. I'm just, I'm like, let's get it. Let's go after it. But my passion is educating our young, because this world, our future is not going to change if we don't take care of the present.
No question. I had a mentor who died recently. I'm 76, soon to be 77.
You look good. I told you.
Yeah, man. You're living a good life.
You got 20. We don't crack. I'm telling you. But anyway.
You got to fight for it now. You got to fight for it. You got to do the things that especially coach, are right to do. You got to get enough sleep at night. You got to stop some of those bad habits that you got. They fall away one by one.
I'm sorry. I know you're calling me out, but that's.
No, I'm not calling you out. I'm just telling you what you got to do to try to get.
No, you're right though. No, but the gluten-free and all. I got all that done down. I'm doing that.
We know the rules. We'll get there. It's the discipline. My mentor died year before last. He was 93, and he was trying to teach me get to be 90. Which was our goal, and he was explaining to me the path of aging and how it happens in some of the stages that you go through. And one of the things that he was emphasizing was good health. And good health is wealth. And the key, now we all have some kind of hereditary or background. We inherit things, and some things we can't do anything about. But I can just know that part of being a good mentor is being, as best you know how, a good role model. You know, by example. And one of the things that I've discovered in trying to learn new things, I've meet people and I try to find out some enduring characteristics that they may have that I want to copy, I want to emulate. One of my friends who was an author used to say, find the good in everyone and praise it and try to copy it. And I think that makes a lot of sense. So if you see, and you can see good characteristics in all kinds of people, men like yourself or not like yourself, or people who come from different races and backgrounds. And my mentor was teaching me to be 90, was European American, because he didn't know many brothers that were 90. I knew a few, and they were just a handful, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
And I happened to, for business reasons, meet this person who exemplified what I thought was a good thing.
You know, you talk about the good habits. And again, I'm just, my wife and I were talking this morning. We were looking through some of the things we need to do. She's on a different cleanse, and we're just some of the things you're talking about health-wise, as far as what we put in our diet because of hereditary dispositions, things we have in our DNA. And I said, it's a daggone shame that our kids, you know, trying to raise them in good habits, they can go get a fork for $4 and eat some of the worst things in the world. But if I want them to eat some gluten-free bread, it's going to cost them $6. They can't do that. You know, it costs to be healthy. I mean, we eat fish and chicken, but it costs to be healthy.
Well, let me just point this out to you. You know, African Americans have been eating vegetables a long time.
Correct.
Through slavery and other times. And so you are right, it costs to be healthy, but there are some basic things that we can do with not a lot of money. And if you think about it, we all look pretty good. Our parents did pretty well by feeding and taking care of us and themselves. My mother and her sisters, there's 7 of them, and they passed away at 96, but they all lived to be at least 90. They weren't vegetarians, and I'm not promoting that necessarily, but they followed some pretty good habits that their mother, who was blind, taught them.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to address something else. Everything is not new. The virus was here many times before and affected African Americans or Black folks or the general population in many ways. Not only was there the 1917 virus, if you will, there was tuberculosis in our communities in the 40s. My grandfather, one of them, died from tuberculosis. There was polio, if you are young enough to know what that is. And then there have been other pandemics, and we survived through that. I lived through polio because my mother had a scrub brush and a box of Tide, and no germ lived in my body, not at least one day. But she had that scrub brush, and we didn't have a shower either. We had a bathtub. Mm-hmm. And she also, every morning, had a spoon of cod liver oil, and you had to take this cod liver oil or die. I never had a cold. So there are some things that generations before and currently have been able to practice that makes a difference. Now I'm taking 2 capsules of fish oil, recommended by my primary care physician. But I've been taking fish oil for 76 years.
Yeah, right.
But I didn't know it was that.
Right.
Sounds like my grandmother, same thing. You know, I have relatives that were struck down by polio.
Yes.
And my grandmother, you know, I remember when I would stay with her, she, you know, we come from a farm family, and, you know, so she was always canning, and everything was always coming from the farm. There was always a ton of vegetables. Now, she was always baking cakes too. I mean, it wasn't,
right.
know, right? And
It's a
we have
blend. There's,
diabetes is rampant. I have I mean, it's rampant in our family.
Yeah.
On that.
All of our family.
all of our families.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the industry that I came from before starting my company was in the diabetes space, and
Oh, okay.
you know, just seeing
Wow.
how that epidemic hits, our Black folks and Latinos. Really, I mean, it's people of color, unfortunately, that
It is.
it's rampant in. But to your point, you know, I remember every night she was like, "You got to drink your prune juice." I mean, she had certain things that she grew up with. and that you know that you had to do, but you know, it was there to keep us healthy. And now it's like you look at you know, kind of some of the fads and other stuff, and you look in there and you're like, my grandmother was making me drink this stuff back in the day. It's just marketing and packaging now, you know.
It is. I've been on the fish oil, like you said. I've been on the fish oil, the turmeric and cinnamon. I take all those you know, something just for flow and everything. I've been doing it for years, and it's, you know, and I'm a big guy, and I always have been. I mean, my family, we're big men. All of us are nice sized men, and and I, you know, being that I know the diabetes and certain things, I just don't put certain things in my body. They, you know, be like, Coach, you probably eat that. I said, I don't. I eat healthy. I eat fish, chicken, vegetable. I mean, that's pretty much that's my regimen. You know, I have my vice. I do enjoy a cigar. I will tell you that, obviously.
I'm with you. Hey, when I saw you with that cigar, I almost took my camera downstairs to the back deck. That's my one thing.
this is my one little whatever, you know. I may have a little wine, you know, but when I'm at home, I'm relaxed. Now, when I'm around my kids, never.
Mm-hmm.
I'm around my kids.
Well, it's a matter of what works for you.
Yeah,
You know.
but as you said though, but the one thing I do understand is the responsibility that comes with my position with these young men makes me, you know, be obviously different. I'm in my home, but when I was like, you know, these young men, you know, I'm trying to, you know, I got some, you know, sometimes I'm a coach. I get after it a little bit. I'm telling you, I'm an old school coach. I was coached by old school coach, and that's just the way I am. But it's in a loving condition, a way to build these young men.
Yep.
Try to give them examples of, you know, yes, you know, they have a coach, you know, you went on scholarship. I said, but you have to understand, I also had a 4.0 coming out of it. So I started the right way. I put myself all three of my sons were D1 college athletes. I said, but we put ourselves in that position because I didn't play when it came to schoolwork. I didn't play when it came to behavior. I didn't play, you know, because I know I see your first name, but just by nature, because of the way I'm raised, I still call you Mr. Jones because it's reverential. That's just the way I see you. I don't see you as
Well, thank you.
I know that's your first name. I'm a man too, but by the same token, there's a certain respect that, you know, you garner. And I think that's what, if I can get that with our, you know, we can get that to our young man, that I'm not here to hurt you. I'm here to help you. Young man, I'm here to help you. I'm here to give you some tips, give you some guidance, give you some direction that will hopefully better your life in spite of your position. I left home at 16. So it can be done.
I have a question for the group, since we're kind of talking about, you know, mentoring and everything else. You know, one of the things that I do struggle with is how we represent ourselves. And maybe not those of us on you know, on the call here, right? You know, we have experience, we understand how to operate in the world, but you know, when I see, now I sound like the old guy, but when I see kids with, you know, the pants sagging way down and
I'm gonna take some, hit it right on
the butt hanging out and you know, kind of acting foolish, you know, I want to just go up to him and say, you know, this is not going to help you. It's not going to help us. Right. So like, you know, but then at the same time, you know, this is a cultural identity. It's not one that I know. I didn't come from that. Right. I mean, hey, I grew up with old school rap. I listen to it today, you know, I love it. So, but, you know, I also knew that I wasn't, you know, my parents were like, you know, they let me have free expression, but when they always gave me enough rope to either learn or hang myself with, right? And so when I went to a certain fad too long, you know, whether it was, you know, heavy metal or something, I was doing something crazy, they'd be like, okay, that's it. No, you know what? Polo shirts. We can't even afford it, but we're going to buy you polo shirts because you have to represent yourself and your family. And that stuck with me. And I don't know how to handle this personally when I see, call it, people acting a fool, and how to, I don't know how to digest that.
Well, because of my experience working with this demographic, those young guys, they say, well, that's our culture. I said, it's not your culture. You're emulating something. You don't know your culture. If you knew your culture, you go back to 1918 and 1920 when brothers would walk around in suits every day. So don't tell me what your culture is. That's not your culture. That's what you're emulating. That's what you see. That's what you desire to be because you see the trappings of the cars and the jewelry and the girl. That you get caught in the trappings.
Yeah.
You know, and that's where you have to be very, very careful. I'm very open. I mean, if I'm in the mall, I've walked up to guys because people say I'm crazy for doing it. I see young guys, I don't know, pants hanging down. I said, look here, young brother. I said, pull those pants up, man. Yeah, I said, I'm not showing you my drawers, don't show me yours. Come on now. I said, because, and the kids will tell you that I coach, especially black kids, the black kids will tell you. I always tell them, don't be what they expect, be better. Don't be what they expect because they have boxed you. Society, the media, society has boxed you in to make you believe this is the way you are, this is the way they see us. But we're not that. We're kings. We are men of substance. We've been fighters. Our culture are fighters. We've overcome slavery. We've overcome being brought to a country against our will. We were sold. We all these things. They stripped us, tried to strip us of our dignity. But how do guys like us rise? You know what? We kept fighting, but we had to do it the right way. And sometimes it's playing the game. I'm not saying you can't. You have the right. Listen, just because you have the right to do it doesn't mean it's the right thing to do.
Exactly.
That's a great point. That's a great point.
Well said. Well, my approach to, I try not to offer advice unless I'm asked or I have an opportunity, because I've been told on a few occasions, painful as it was, mind your own business. And I want to pull out my gun and shoot them because it makes me really angry if I see someone. I was at a gas station once, and knowing how to do things makes sense too. And I was at a gas station and I was buying some gas, and a car pulled up with a bunch of brothers in there, loud music and so forth. I understand, no problem. I like loud music too. And they opened the door and threw all the trash out on the ground. I knew one of them, and I just looked at them, and I thought about it, and I stepped over and I said to the one, and I said, you know, oh, your mother sure would be ashamed of you. Oh, Mr. Jones, oh, no. I'm going to pick it up, because his standard was he thought a great deal of his mother, and he didn't want anyone to think, especially his mother, that he was far below her standard, because he knew that she wouldn't pull up to the gas pump and open the car up and throw the trash in the ground. So I think many people have standards. Sometimes we have to look and see our chance to do it, because minds are like parachutes. They only work if they're open. So in the sense of providing information and advice, you have to pick your shots. And some folks are just, I shouldn't say it's a waste of time, but you're not going to be successful.
It's true.
But in the coaching business, which you're in, I grew up around a lot of coaches at the YWCA, YMCA rather, and also at the Boys Club. That was full of coaches, because in the game of playing ping pong or basketball or volleyball, you get coached. And it was there I began to learn how to be coachable. So benefit.
That's one of the lessons. I mean, that's, you know, even when I help my kids get recruited going to college, that's one thing, you know, I always tell the kids when they come in as freshmen, you have to be coachable. You have to be open. Your mind has to be open to the information that we give you. You know, we don't just, we're fortunate for our staff. We're primarily Black on our staff. And so all of us are anywhere from 40 to myself, 56. And, you know, we set standards that we make it understood that less than 1% make NBA, less than 1% is going to go to the professional level. You know, so I preach using the God-given talent that you have to get you a free education, or at least a deferred cost education. or defray the cost. That is the way we come in. So I'm the grade Nazi, so to speak, on the staff. I don't play because I'm an admin. I don't play when it comes to grades. You fell in the class, you can't even practice with me.
Yeah.
Because obviously your time, you need to understand. So we have to, and I think I get them young because I'm reshaping that mindset. You know what, Brody's, I've got to do this to get to here, and they have to be open to do it or they don't play. And I told them I'd rather lose a game with somebody with character who's doing the right thing to give you this out and let you just act a fool and misrepresent our program, misrepresent your family, and misrepresent who you are. We're not going to do that. I refuse to allow you to do that. Not on my watch. And I'm not scared you get bowing up at me. I'm 285 pounds. Come get some.
Let me ask this. I want to interject. You guys, I want you to keep going, but I know that we have a limited time with Jay. I know you got to go in a little bit. No, you're fine. Everybody is good. But I want to ask this question just to get the second question in before Jay leaves out. And that is, Mr. Lafayette, Mr. Jones, you brought up something in our interview that I want to bring to the bigger table. And that is, even in society as today, as we're talking about younger people, because I think this is a great segue for this, as we're talking about younger people and as we're just talking about the generations right now in general, as we're looking at society, when we look at the protests and we look at standing up for what's right and different things like that, you know, one of the things that me and Mr. Jones talked about was, yes, I think all of that is great, but you cannot forget what was already built.
Oh.
You need to build upon what was already there as opposed to trying to reinvent the wheel. Mm-hmm. And I want to talk about that a little bit with you guys of where do you see the places to build upon as opposed to reinventing the wheel, and where are the places where there is no wheel right now, because we have come a long way, right? As Black people, as African Americans, whatever you want to call, we have come a long way from the civil rights movement to now. And it's almost like we're in another almost civil rights movement, right? Mm-hmm. Or we are in another civil rights movement. Where do we need to build upon, and where do we need to create those?
Go ahead,
well, I do have to go here in a second. So, boy, that's a meaty question. That's a good question. You know, it's interesting because, you know, that we have this dialogue going on right now about rewriting history, right? You know, because people want to take down the Confederate statues and things like that. And what I countered with was saying that actually we're starting to unlock parts of our history that have either been suppressed or haven't been brought up for a long, long time. I said, you know, I was talking to one person the other day and I said, take that monument, you know, Confederate monument, you know, let's take this plantation and let's tell the entire story. Like, you know, that's where that thing can reside and you can learn and you know, I'm a big history buff. You know, kind of right place, but also putting it in context, right? So walk through the slave quarters, pick up some of the shackles, look at the bills of lading, you know, look at the fact that animals were more expensive and cherished than humans, you know, I mean, just all these other things, right? So, you know, what I tell people is we have an opportunity to awaken some history here versus always that dialogue of, oh, we're canceling it. Well, no. Now we're telling our history, and now it's making you uncomfortable.
Right.
And that's okay. You need to feel uncomfortable. Now, if we can get to what we were talking about earlier, where you can have that EQ to also be able to take a step back and say, okay, I understand now. I understand why you as a person carry the emotion and mantle of, you know, my father, right? Who couldn't drink out of a certain fountain. And has stories, you know, that stick with me, my own experiences with racism. And then thinking back to the fact that, you know, we can trace ourselves back to a plantation outside of Burlington. You know, so for me, it's maybe bringing up the history and making sure that the generations now understand what has been done. And some of the things that we did during those movements that was so very impactful and meaningful and move forward. And kind of not to hijack the topic, but another area that and I hate this because I got 2 minutes left, but another area that I think I would love opinions on and love a dialogue on sometime is who represents us. I have to admit that, you know, Jesse does not speak to me.
Oh
Al
my
Sharpton
God, I said
doesn't
the
speak
same
to
thing.
me.
I didn't hear who you said. Who does not speak for you?
Jesse Jackson, Al Sharpton, you know, they don't really speak to me. They don't really represent what I feel like me. And so who are those? You know, you could say President Obama, Michelle, you know, but who are those people, the Dr. Martin Luther Kings of today? Like, who are those people that can galvanize and mobilize and represent in a way that carries the torch forward? And to your point, CK and Mr. Jones, what it sounds like you guys talked about is not forgetting all the work that's been done. The Tuskegee you mentioned. I said something the other day, you know, being a veteran, you know, for me in my heart, I feel like I carry a lineage of, you know, the first person killed in the revolution was a Black person. You know, people fought for our country when and would come home to segregation.
Right.
So my goodness, if you want to look at some of the most patriotic people in this country, it's Black people.
No doubt.
Because we could have gone somewhere else, right? But we chose to fight for the ideal that was behind the words of the Constitution and the Declaration and what the ideal of what America can be and move forward. So, you know, kind of long-winded here, and I apologize that I got to jump off, but I think we need to bring in awareness. You know, CK, like I was saying, my daughter, she's 16. You know, I'm in an interracial marriage, so she looks white. But when the protests happened here in Raleigh, the peaceful protest, she came to me and she was like, I want to go to that, Dad. I got to be heard. I want to go. And at first I was like, I don't know, this could get rough. And she was like, I need this. And that kind of awakened me to say, right, I have to teach, I have to be there, I have to carry the mantle, I have to pick up where my dad left off and, you know, continue that forward. So
I say, you know, we can learn from our children and people
oh yeah,
younger than us. I have in many ways. So I just can say amen to what you're saying. So true.
I agree.
I gotta run, y'all. I am so sorry.
Hey, I'll send you an email, something. I'll try to get contact information because I would love to continue our, you know, our growth because you say who are those leaders? I think you're still looking at three of them.
It's us, and that's the thing, right? How do we get our voice? So yeah, I was going to ask CK afterwards how I can stay in touch with y'all because
please share my information.
I have a solution. We'll ask Miss James, who's our mentor.
Yeah, exactly.
To find a way to bring all of her folks together.
Yeah.
I'm working on that as we speak right now. Just
Yeah,
had that conversation
there
this
you go.
morning. Yeah.
That would be good.
Yeah.
The next Dr. King.
No, I mean, but hey,
Y'all have a good one. Take
Take
care.
it easy. Have a good one.
Thank you for your time.
Nice to meet you.
No, you know, that's interesting, but I think right now, you know, that there's a lot of unrest. Obviously, we know that a lot of, you know, racial things, a lot of things that kids are hearing and seeing. But what I've seen in some young men and some young Blacks, which I'm happy with, is they are going back because I'm like, you need to know your history. You need to know where we come from, what our struggles were, why the anger. Don't just be mad because of. Know why. There's an underlying reason for some of the things that are happening, and I've seen more youth go back and to really understand history, and it's opened their minds to some things. Because I said this before, and it's just me speaking personally. I understand, you know, the tearing down of the monuments and all that. That's cool. That's fine. But we need to go deeper than that. Because a lot of our community didn't even know who these people were or what they did prior to them tearing down the monument. And now they're like, oh, I didn't know he did this. Now I get it. You know what I mean? So I think it's opened up, as unfortunate as some of the situations that have happened, I think it has opened up an opportunity for those to learn more, who are starting to learn more. You know, as the kids say, now they're becoming more woke. You know, now they're understanding all of these things. My youngest son is very passionate in the Black Lives Movement, you know, doing things the right way and going back. I mean, and I mentioned to you, You know, one of his things, he wants to go back into the Black community because he's ready to go to medical school. He wants to go to the Black community and start a foundation for young Black men and say, hey, it's not just about sports. Let me tell you about being a doctor. Let me tell you the path. You know, and that's where it starts. So we can educate these 21-year-olds, these 25-year-olds, and you know, my middle son's doing some things in Texas, the same kind of thing. I think getting their history, understanding who they are, and then reaching back to try to start cultivating these young minds, because as you said, a lot of this stuff has happened before. You know, there is a foundation laid. We just forgot about it. Somewhere along the line, we just forgot about it.
Well, the word you use is foundation. And I'll give you an example. In the beauty industry, which is a little less than maybe $6 or $7 billion in annual gross sales, there's a group called the National Beauty Cultures League. It was founded in 1919, predating Madam C.J. Walker.
Mm-hmm.
You might have seen some of the film that Leah Bundles has in her show that through Netflix. It gives you a little history. But this group has been around 100 years. Can you imagine anything that's lasted 100 years? World War I, World War II, you know, Hiroshima, civil rights, all the way to today. They have a characteristic which is called they're enduring. Now, do they have all the latest technology? No. Do they have the typical issues that organizations have? Yes. But they own property in Logan Square in Washington, D.C., where all the mansions are, that is worth many millions of dollars. How did they get that? They applied certain things. Now, in talking to younger cosmetologists, which is some of which are coming out of school now and doing many things, you may not want to start a brand new association. You might want to go and join that one and help them endure some more and learn some of the principles. How did they get this $1 million mansion? You know, they must know something. And if you can add the new knowledge that you bring to the table of technology or certain kinds of training from a cosmetology point of view, that's great. So I'm talk a lot about let's don't reinvent the wheel. If you look at historically Black colleges, those are just bastions of smart people, well-educated Black and white and other people who have one mission in life, and that's to teach us something. So we want to build on those things, and they're not right nowadays. There's a lot of things they don't do so well.
That's true.
And there's a lot of room for improvement, but it's better than, you know, the idea is to take the wheel we have and make it better. So I'm a big advocate of using the resources that we have. The vice presidential candidate, Senator Harris, came from historically Black school, Howard University. If you look at the sororities, whether they are Alpha Kappa Alpha or Delta Sigma Theta or the Links or what have you.
You got to throw Zeta Phi Beta in there. I'm just saying.
I was getting there. Part of Divine Nine. All of those women's groups and men's groups have a purpose and have existed for a while. Same thing with the Mason movement and all derivatives. Now they got some things that may look a little strange sometimes, and they probably are, but it's part of the history. So we have a rich history and culture that we can build upon. And so that's what I urge us to do. Everything is not new. The virus has been here before. Really, it's not, I mean, what's new is that the technology allows us to know so much more about it on a microsecond basis.
Right.
So, I mean, if you think about the civil rights movement and today's movement only works as well as it does because of technology and bringing information to people that wasn't available before. These challenges that we're facing today, many are new, but not all of them.
So how do we get So I guess, we talk about that the foundation is there. So maybe it takes people like us maybe trying to get, I always say, there's only so many hours in a day, and I feel like I'm exhausted with the kids, and I'm at the school. I feel like most of the time working with kids. But, how do we get that knowledge out there to how do we get these younger generation involved so they can understand? Maybe, maybe it takes us, some of us maybe getting involved in some, maybe in an organization that has been around. So I can say, hey, let me tell you about this. I mean, I think a lot of it is our lack of knowledge in certain areas. We don't know where to find the knowledge. We don't know.
I'll give you a perfect example of what you're talking about. Most people my age don't know much about technology, and they will tell you in a minute, I don't fool with that. I have a personal technologist. His name is Mr. Jimmy Davies, Every Dot Black. And I spend 4 hours a week with him, and he's teaching me the technology, the nomenclature, and how to use it. Now, I admit I'm slow, but I got all the right equipment because I got a few little shekels that I, on occasion, can buy this piece of equipment. I know that the future for my generation is that more of us have to understand technology because the information we need to be healthy or travel and so forth. Yesterday I had an experience. It was on Miss James's show. And 3/4 in the middle of it, my system stopped working. Oh, Lord, But you know what? I was back on in 3 minutes because I just reverted to my training that Mr. Davies had taught me. So you never get too old to learn. So I say for those of us who are above 30, we need to learn how to use technology because that's one of the keys to the future. And we can learn from people who are younger than us.
No question. No question. I taught a computer class when I was a business teacher, and I had a kid come in, and he told me more shortcuts. I was like, really? And I was like, listen, I said, well, just, and I always told my kids, I said, look, just because I'm up here doesn't mean I can't learn. I'm always open to learn new. Every day is a learning experience. I'm fine with that. I'm not so high just because I am the one with the pen, so to speak, that you can't share ideas. I'm like, share it to the class. Let us all grow. How do we shortcut through an Excel spreadsheet? I didn't know you could do that. I did it long ways. You did it this way. Now everybody is a little more knowledgeable about this particular. And I know that's just a small example.
That's a big example to be able to do that.
Big example.
but it goes back to what what you're saying. Again, being so active in sports, I tell them, I said, I've been coaching for years. I played the game. I've been coaching for years. All this good stuff. I go to clinics to learn, and there's younger coaches in there saying, hey, and I may get one thing out of it, but if it's like, if you do this drill, this is going to improve this, whatever it may be. I'm not like, hey, young boy, don't know anything. I'm like, hey, let me try that. Let me see if I can implement that to grow my team as well. Because I feel for us to really grow, we have to be humble in our own self. That we have to be open to knowledge ourselves to be able to give knowledge out. Because if I'm so closed, I can't help anyone, not even myself. So.
Well, part of being open-minded, it's a process of learning to be, and I'm learning to be all the time a little more open-minded. I have several daughters, and one of them say to me, "Oh, Daddy, Google it." And what she's telling me is an information I'm looking for is available to me, and I have the tool, but I don't always think of it. I didn't grow up with Google or those kinds of
right.
services. And so our youth bring us a lot of things that we have to be more open to. And there's more than one way to do things.
Yeah, I agree.
So it sounds like Bridging the Gap is not only reaching out for youth to teach you technology, which is the wave, right? It's the future. It's here. It's not going anywhere. But in them teaching you technology, just that interaction allows you to be able to impart wisdom and teach them some things as well. So it starts bridging that relationship. Is that what I'm hearing?
I think it does, because if I'm willing, if I'm humble enough or open enough to listen to you, you're going to in turn be more open to listen to me, because I haven't diminished your thoughts. I haven't, elevated myself so high where I can't be taught. So I think it does bring that that relationship piece together. I mean, I'm a big relationship coach. I mean, I was that way with my kids. I'm that way in the school system. To me, everything. And if you go to one of our business classes, if they never learned anything else, I would say business is. They would say relationship. I say it's about relationships. It's all business is everything. It's about relationships.
It's a key ingredient.
It is. It is what it is to me. What makes it all possible. Because without it, you just two people butting heads. Whereas in a relationship, being open, you're like, oh man, we're in this together. We create a bond.
But it takes time to learn how to do that, because sometimes because of the nature of who we are or circumstances, we may not be so open-minded. I can say that I've learned much of my entrepreneurial business from my wife, who's an MBA from the Kellogg School of Business and ran businesses that are a couple $100 million or more, and her discipline. So we can learn for real from our spouses and from women as well. I recall something, I don't know how it relates to this. When I worked at Unilever, and when I got there, there was only one other African American in another part of the country, and I was on the West Coast. I was on the East Coast, New York, down to New Jersey and Philadelphia was where I worked initially in my training and did my marketing, some of my marketing training there. It was one day my superior boss said to me, why is it that you never turn in an expense account? And I asked him, I said, well, what is an expense account? Well, I'm working in a company and no one told me, and I've been there for a year, what an expense account was. Expense account's supposed to pay for your gas, for your car, for your maintenance of it, or other things. And in fact, we even had a lunch allowance, because he worked in the field all the time. So I was paying it out of my pocket. My boss says, we don't understand. We looked at the accounting department wants to know why this gentleman, you never turn an expense account. And I said, I never heard of it before. Now, so my benefit, I learned from that first of all, I got all my money back, which was wonderful. A big check, a year's worth of expenses was like $4,000 or $5,000 in expenses, maybe more. At that time, a check for $4,000 or $5,000 was a lot of money. But again, some of this process of learning can be very beneficial if you see it. So from then on, I became, they finally had to tell me, you can't put that on the expense account. Because I put everything on the expense account. I tested the limit. I can tell you many stories, especially for us older African Americans in business. There wasn't a mentor. There was no one there. We didn't have, so that meant that you had to rely on white folks or other people to tell you or help you. And sometimes they would tell you, we don't want you here. They would say that. Now, if you were thin-skinned or if you were weak-minded, you would go home and cry about it. No, I don't think so. And so you had to toughen up to learn certain things.
I agree. It's funny to talk about not having mentors. And I touched on this when I spoke. My mentor was a white guy. So they got me into the mortgage industry. And I was a young guy. He saw something in me. I was working at the time I was working at Florida State Prison. Working in the prison system in Florida. And met this guy's neighbor, and he just said, there's something about you. Like the way you carry yourself. I want to show you this business, and you'll make more money you ever made in your life and your career. You were marketing. I had marketing. That was my course in college, my undergrad, and I said, okay. And I was open to it, and he literally, when I say mentored me, he sat me down. He told me ins, outs, ugly. He told me about his people, how to deal with his people. Showed me expense reports. It's funny. He told me how to do my expenses. I mean, and I rose to become the only Black manager in the East Coast.
Wow.
Then I was a top. Then I went to regional VP. I was the top. I worked my butt off because I knew, besides the fact he poured so much into me, I knew it was different. I knew I was in a different position. And I'm like, I saw even how I started hiring blacks. They were like, man, this guy is really doing it. And I was young. I was just energetic. And I was just, I was just, you just pour all into me. You just pour all the knowledge you wanted, and I was soaking it up, and I was making sure that I knew. And I was very blessed to have that man in my life for many years. He took me anywhere I want. I grew with him. He took me to the new companies. We started new companies, and I had a very successful mortgage industry career because somebody reached back and did that. And that always made an impact on me. And that also let me know that everybody white's not bad. So it also, because growing up in Kentucky, I had different experiences. It was totally different. I'm sort of getting old
What was your career path?
When I got out of college, I went to Tampa, Florida, sight unseen, and my first real job was working in the prison system. Worked in Florida State prison system. There was a black chief who was recruiting young black men because the opportunity to work in the prison system. I needed a job. I was new out of college, 21 years old. Benefits, retirement. I could go back and go to school if I wanted to, all these different things. And I was like, hey, not a bad thing. I'm a big guy. I'm not really afraid of all that stuff. So I did it. My wife, soon-to-be wife at the time, she and I are still together, 32 years. We've been married 32 years. But from there, I got into the mortgage industry. And when I got into the mortgage industry, that was pretty much it up until education. I owned it after I worked for a couple of big companies, VP. Then I had my own brokerage firm for a while.
Wow.
And then after that, that's when I transitioned into education. I was just ready to give back. I wanted to be there with my sons growing up. I was already coaching and involved in it, but I just felt, it's funny, it came full circle. My dad, who I didn't grow up with, used to tell me, you're going to be a teacher. You're going to, yes, he was an educator. My dad was vice president of Southern Illinois. And I was like, there's no way, Dad, I make too much money in the mortgage industry. There's no way I'm going to be a teacher. There's no way that you can forget about it. He said, you're great with kids. You give back. You love it. You have a passion. You're going to do it. I'm like, no, I'm not. No, I'm not. No, I'm not. Well, needless to say, there's a little more wisdom in him than it was in me, because that's what I'm doing now. And you can't drag me away from it because I love it. I love the opportunity to give back. I love the opportunity to educate. I love the opportunity to influence. And it's just, I'm in my perfect spot. God placed me in the school system for a reason. I know I'm not job fearful. I've said this before. So I'm not job fearful. I never have been, never will be. And somebody said, I said something in a meeting, at a principal's meeting. We were in there, and I'm very straightforward. Sometimes because if I think you're trying to talk down to me, I have to remind you who I am. And I can do it in a way without being the rough, let me just bow up and fight. I can say it in a way where I mean what I say. And I remember the principal saying, man, you got to be careful of that. I said, you have to understand, I'm not here because of you, and I'm not here because, I said, I was placed in this position. My authority is not you all. I'm here for a reason. So therefore, I'm going to continue to do what I've been tasked to do, and I'm going to do it with the same passion that I've done everything else. And that's just sort of my.
And your students and the people you work with are the beneficiaries of that. But more importantly, you're a beneficiary of that, because it's a wonderful thing to be able to say that you are doing what you are most chosen to do. We all have a destiny.
Yes.
It takes us all time to get there. I can say I am doing, and I have been doing for a long time, exactly what I want to do. But over time, we change careers, and we change paths, and we learn new things. And like Miss James I'm sure she didn't grow up wanting to have a technology show as we're on today. This came to her through some probably a higher power, I would guess.
Sure.
But we've all experienced that. If you see enough really good things. You know, I've known and met some of the most wonderful people at the very top and not at the very top, from Maya Angelou, I personally knew, um, just authors and poets and um, athletes. One of my good friends was a baseball player whose name was John Roseborough. And John Roseborough was um, a catcher for after Roy Campanella, if you know sports.
For the A's, yeah.
Ms. James, I know you don't know about this, but I'm not a baseball fan, but there are many people who are baseball fans who know John Roseborough. Well,
I know he is.
you know the name. I met Mr. John Roseborough at a party in LA when I was living in Los Angeles. And he used to call me son. And one day he showed up at my house when I was living in Los Angeles and said that he liked me because I didn't know anything about baseball, that I didn't talk about baseball, and I wasn't interested in baseball. He offered me some tickets once to go to a Dodger World Series game. I told him on the third base line, I didn't know what that was. I told him, no, I don't think so. I'm not interested in baseball. He laughed and he laughed and he laughed because the tickets were worth go. But one of the reasons we became friends were that we had other interests, mainly in our children, and we were living in Southern California and so forth. So just amazing what you can learn and see from other people. Friendships, relationships, those are all important.
You know, and you talk about growth. You know, I look back on some of the things in my life, and I had a very unique experience that most young Black men have probably never had. I was, when I was in college in Southern Illinois, I was I was popular, but I was first Black homecoming king.
Wow.
And during Black History Month, they had our advisors brought in these speakers. I brought in this forum for me to be a part of, to sit and talk to Black professionals and Black leaders. And, you know, and at that time, I don't even think I realized just what was going on. I don't think I was in my mature mind enough to realize the impact, what it was. But I had lunch, and on my left side was Shirley Chisholm.
Wow.
And on my right was Reverend Joseph Lowry.
Wow.
So I'm sitting here as this 18-year-old kid. And there was a CEO of McDonald's who was one of the top owners of McDonald's franchises. And I'm sitting at this table, and the gravity of, I mean, now you sit back like, wow, man, you should have asked this. You should have said this. You could have asked so many questions. And I remember talking to them, and they were just very encouraging. You know, as a young man, you're making strides. You're making history. You don't understand. You're doing this. You know, you have a destiny. And I don't think it resonated as it should have back then, because
probably wasn't time to resonate.
I guess it did, yeah. But as I look back, and now as you know, in reflective mode, I was like, wow, look at the opportunity. Look at the history. Look at what you were around. You were, you know, like I said, God has had a plan for me all my life. Evidently, I didn't know what it was, but it's when He's placed me in certain positions to be around certain people that even now I can reach back that impacted me that I had no idea, that allows me to go forward and try to be, you know, sort of emulate that.
What you're talking about, and I don't know how to describe it psychologically, is not just about today. The information that one takes in from the people you were sitting next to, you were taking in a lot of information subconsciously.
Sure.
Information that fuel for the fire later. You may not have been able to understand, or maybe shouldn't have, but now you can sit back and think about it.
Yeah.
And those,
So almost in a propelling state, something to propel him forward, and when he needed to be propelled forward.
exactly.
Sure.
Who was the gentleman who wrote the book, slavery book? Alex Haley.
Alex Haley.
Well, I knew Alex Haley, and Alex Haley was a person who was very friendly. He is a person who would say to me, find the good in people and praise it. Now, if you really think about that, if you really just think about that, and all the people that you've met in the past and will meet today and tomorrow, if you can find one or two good things about them that you want to emulate, you will have walked away with a treasure.
True.
And that's what happened to you when you were sitting in between these two giants. The things going on that wasn't, you know, there's a place and time for all things. And
Right.
it's not just about today, because today is just a current setting that you can put in your repertoire, better known as your bag of tricks. And in difficult times and in good times, reach in and pull something out of that bag.
Yes. Yes. I totally agree.
Let me ask this, because I think that as we're wrapping up, this is my last question for today, and I thank you both for being on here. I know we could talk forever. All of us can talk forever, and because it's good conversation, it's good stuff. But you guys have talked about having thick skin. Two things: having to have thick skin, and the connections that you were able to form. Can you speak to the experiences or the importance of, number one, having thick skin, what that allowed you to accomplish, and then connections or building your network, so to speak, where did that come into play and why was that important as well?
Can I talk about not having thick skin?
Absolutely. It's up to you.
And I want to take the opposite side of that. You get thick skin because you endure a lot. You know, getting thick skin, you just don't wake up with. And some people do. I didn't. I'll give you a case in point. In the mid 70s, I'd worked very, very hard to create a very large business for a company I worked for. And I thought that I would, of course, be rewarded for that. And I guess I was rewarded, but I didn't get the golden ring that I was expecting, nor the membership or in the country club, nor didn't have a signing bonus, the extra bonuses than that. And I was thoroughly disappointed. Matter of fact, I was very angry about it. Mm-hmm. And I went out to my car when the vice president told me, says, well, I don't think this is the one that you're going to get this time. And then promoted a gentleman who was working almost for me as my boss. Those things happened in those days. I look back upon it, and the pain of that taught me so much about being independent, about ultimately being my own business person, and not putting my fate in the hands of others. And that's not always so bad, but it wasn't the right thing to do for me in this case. And also, I learned that when the statement is, when one door closes, another opens. That's one of the benefits of developing over time. And I also learned not to celebrate too early, because the night before I went out and had a good time because I knew they were getting ready to bring me the brass ring. No, not you, brother. Not for you today. You're not the one. And so the other thing you learn from that is timing is everything. And you have to be able to, like in sports and life, you got to be able to take the blow. When you take the blow, that doesn't mean you liked it, not mean you're happy about it, but you're not going to fall apart either. And you're going to keep going toward your goal.
I think, and I'll piggyback as far as the thick skin. I think a lot of mine came through just some of the tough things growing up. So I didn't let a lot of things to tell me I can't, that motivated me. So I didn't want to hear that. I'd endured some things that probably a lot of my friends, some people don't even know. I mean, I endured some rough areas. And I've said this before, I was angry a lot of times, but I had to control that anger. I had to control that.
Will you say that again, please? You had to do what?
Control that anger.
There you go.
And it was.
That's how you get thick skin. You learn how to control.
And it wasn't always easy. You know, it wasn't always easy, and I didn't want to be portrayed as the big angry. Like, I mean, you know, because you hear all these things. So I mean, I think the thick skin came from that. I think thick skin came from sports. You know, like you say, you know, everything's a competition. You know, everything's a competition. You're competing to get on the field. I was competing to get on the court. I was competing to be the starting pitcher. You know, I was competing to be on the 4x4. I mean, it didn't matter. You know, when I got into the workforce, I knew they didn't like me there. I already knew that when I walked in the door. I knew that because you could just, the looks, the stares, what is he doing there? How blacks don't work in finance, what are you doing?
Right.
And I think that for me, that was fuel. I'm like, oh yeah, not only am I going to show you, I'm going to be your boss.
Yeah,
You're going to work for me for it's all
This
said
is
and
a
done.
great motivation to many folks who have been successful to be able to demonstrate who they are. And oftentimes we as African Americans and African American men, and it happens today, have been in places where they didn't want you there. Now,
Sure.
they may not say it the way they used to say it, like, we don't want you here, with a few little adjectives behind it,
Right.
and had nerve enough to say it. Now, if you let them make you angry, you know, you would, or real angry, you would lose your way. And
Correct.
and if you did get angry, you know, learning how to recover and come back. I did recover from that and came back to work after I didn't get my dream job a week later, and put my head down. And when I say put my head down, I became more determined than ever that I would be an independent person. Never again would I put my total fate in the hands of some folks. And I guess they meant well. I'm not going to disparage them. That was then, this is now. My mother would say often that every kick in the pants is a boost. And that was her big statement. Now, son, every kick in the pants is a boost. Now, some of those kicks were in the wrong place and pretty hard.
Sure.
But they were boosts. So I think anger management is another thing that we learn as a part of having thick skin. Just because you got angry about it doesn't mean you have to act it out. That takes discipline.
Correct.
And you know that from sports. If some quarterback gets run over by a large fullback, now he can be angry about it, but that's not going to win the game.
Right. No, you're right. And I did see my father, and I touched on this when I spoke. My father, when I got to spend time with him in the summers when I growing up, my dad was the first, in California. I was born in Los Angeles. He was one of the first black professors in California. Then he went to Illinois. He was a first black at Southern Illinois University. He was the first school board member. Then he became the first black school board chairman. He was the head of the school board. So, I watched him and listened to stuff he told me about how, because he said, we get death threats. I'm like, whoa, should we be worried? He's like, I'm not worried about threats. He said, we've been getting threats all life. I grew up in Detroit. We've been getting threatened all my life. It's not a big deal. And it never fazed him. He said, it's not going to stop me from forging ahead for what I'm supposed to be doing. That kind of strength, I think, I know that kind of strength is in me. So, and I feel like I put that same fire, passion, strength, dedication, determination in my three sons. And I see that in them. I see by the decisions they make and by the things they do and their outlook, their perspective. So yeah, the thick skin is necessary for us because, sometimes people try to be slick in what they say. They come out of their mouth a little crazy. You have to in a nice way articulate to them, hey, look here, young man. I put my pants on just like you, one leg at a time now. I'm a man. You will respect me. You don't have to like me, and that's fine. But I do command respect, period, because I give it. You're on mute.
You're on mute, Mr. Jones.
Mr. Jones, you're on mute.
How about now?
There we go.
There you go.
I think you do. There you go. You're off.
I'm on now?
Yes.
Yes. Thank you. Learning this technology. Can you hold just a moment? Go ahead. I've got an interruption. Go ahead.
Yeah, we can. So you guys talked about the thick skin. The part B of that was network and connections. Is there an important to have be connected or build a network in that way, and how has that helped you as you've gone along your way?
I think it's very important. You have to develop. You do have to develop network. You have to, because like minds. You want to be around like-minded individuals. And again, you don't have to put yourself up here and go lower. You have to be able to adjust to all. But I think like-minded individuals help with growth. I don't have a big circle. I mean, I personally, I don't want to say a loner, but I got my coaches. We all really cool. But other than that, I'm pretty much reserved sort of to myself. I may have a beer with a couple of guys, play a little golf, and we talk and, things like that. But this what you put together is why I really want to reach out to Mr. Jones and Jay and hope that this doesn't just end here, because I do believe there's a lot of meat, there's a lot of layers in here. And I think for us to grow, even though we may be in different industries, we're all in the same fight. And I really believe that that linking yourself with mentors and it's easy to do if I'm not a hothead. If I don't always feel, if somebody don't always think, well, I don't know, that dude's always angry. Well, it's going to be tough. I'm going to alienate people before they have a chance to really get to know me. So, that control that we have to, exude.
That we have to learn.
Right.
You had to learn that control.
Correct. You do. But
most of us weren't born with that kind of control.
Not even close. Not even close. And I can tell you that from volatile growth, we just didn't have that. So now as I've grown and as I've continued to get older, I love sharing ideas, even though we come from different areas. Mr. Jones has 20 years on me, so he's experienced some things I haven't. Things have changed a little different for me, but I mean, I can still, and I made the comment earlier, even when I was looking, I said, you just look like wisdom to me.
Well, that's funny, and I thank you for that very much, Mr. Wilson, Ms. James. The reason I smile when you say that, I haven't always done things right, and I've had to learn how to do better, and I've been a beneficiary of that, and that has continued that's part of the process of growth, of understanding what you do well and what you don't, and also understand the importance of relationships and how to get the best from them. What is it, the term that folks use now? Presence of mind is something else. What is the word that you all use for presence of mind? Where you're more aware of, that might be one of them, but there's a mindfulness. Is that the word? Yeah.
That's one. Yeah.
That's one of the words. Well, you have to really work at being mindful. It's a hard process.
It is.
Because when you're in the moment, you miss many things. But one of the things that the virus has done for me is give me an opportunity to do some more reflection, more time, more available. I also didn't talk about this yesterday, which relates to this, is I have become a biographer. Matter of fact, I've been a biographer for about 35 years. I write columns in magazines about people that I met in the beauty industry, in the agricultural industry, in the, we now have an entry in the hemp business. And so I've met some of the greatest people in the world. Mm-hmm. And I invite both of you to be in my column. All you need is a great headshot, 300 DPI, and a biography less than 400 words sent to me in Word. And what I do is I publish them. I have now my columns are reaching more than 50,000 people a month. And when you become a biographer, which I didn't know I was going to be, I didn't discover that till just recently that I was a biographer. You read a person's biography, you learn an awful lot about them. That's why I asked you the question, what's your background? Because part of the process of forming a relationship is if you understand even a little bit about where the other person has been and what has been important, at least in their business or their life. And people write biographies differently. You can learn an awful lot about them, why they started their business, what their history has been, what their education is, what they admire, what their principles are, what their values are. And if you start with that as the basis of a relationship, you're really ahead of the game, because you know a great deal, well, more than most. And biographies are things that are online all the time. If we want to know about something, we can look it up and find out what their history is.
That's
And
true.
I have biographies of people who have written many books. A friend of mine, his name is John Boss, just wrote a book called The Catalyst. So I happen to be in that book and reading about his perspective. I'm not finished with it, so I don't know everything about it yet. But I'm reading his biography, and it helps you to understand where other people, as we say in the business, where they're coming from.
Where they coming from? Yeah.
And so I encourage, and a biography, by the way, I encourage people to write biographies of their own about themselves as part of their legacy, because it gives other folks a perspective, including their children.
You know, but it's interesting. You talk about biography. Your biography changes as you grow.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That's one thing I've noticed. Because I like to write and I love to read. So as I look at some of the things I've written and some of the things I've dealt with in the past, I may talk about some of the pain. Some of the pain and some of the things I endured have shaped me to where I am. I like to think of this.
And joy.
I haven't forgotten that. Say it again.
And joy.
Yes, and joy. You know, I haven't forgotten that, but I know that there's certain things that have shaped me because, you know, my past has shaped me to become, you know, to be determined, to do certain things. So I'll send you something. I look for it, like I said, when I get the information, I'll send you something.
Sure.
I think that's the way it goes. I love, you know, because I think everybody there's always a why. You know, when you talk to someone, or you meet someone new, or you start getting to know someone, that there's always a why. There's always a basis for where they are, or where their minds are shaped, and it evolves over time. Some things you don't harbor as much as maybe you did years ago, but you know they were also instrumental parts of your growth to where you are now.
Exactly.
And I don't beseech my past, because if I didn't have a past, I wouldn't be where I am now.
Absolutely. It's so well said. I've been called for what Mr. Wilson will know is a honeydew.
Just told me a minute ago,
Say,
I'm on a call.
we wanted to wrap up really quick. Mr. Jones and Mr. Wilson, I've had so much fun with you, both of you. And Jay, and when Jay was on, we thank him for being on for the time that he could give us as well. You know, in tradition, it is to let you guys have the platform to give whatever your lasting words are. So Mr. Jones, I know you have that honeydew, and those are very important. Being a married woman, I understand how important those are. And because I have honeydew list myself for my husband. And so with that being said, I'm going to ask you if you wouldn't mind going first before you kind of check off. And then Mr. Wilson, if you would close us out with your lasting comments, if you don't mind.
Well, I find it a privilege, and I want to say thank you for inviting us, and me in particular, on your show. I thank you for the relationship with Mr. Jimmy Davies, who's my technology mentor and friend. And I think what you're doing is, you and I were discussing day before yesterday about voices of the Black man. Well, we've always had a voice. Maybe people weren't necessarily listening as well as they might, and maybe we weren't articulate. But this tool that you have is one of the ways to give us another voice. I also want to speak up for Black men. Sometimes we don't say anything because we want to listen and think it through, because time has proven shooting your mouth off at every time something about everything may not be the best use of your energy and time. So many Black men that I know who are growing and maturing are reserved because they want to think about it. They don't say everything they think. I've had to learn that. And they become reserved, and it allows them to be better listeners, which is a real skill to learn. You, as a better listener, you can pick up many things. And one of the things is I don't drink alcohol, and there's a lot of reasons for that. But one of the things that I learned when I didn't drink alcohol, and you just listen, people will tell you anything. Yeah, I mean, it's just quite amazing what people will tell you when they are under the influence. And I decided after many years, I didn't want to be that way. And so I stopped being that way. So being relationships, being a good listener. And yesterday I ended my statement about the 4 things that I've learned that really make people successful. Faith. All the people I know got successful. Success is defined in many ways. Can be defined in many ways. It's faith. They all have faith in something, usually a higher power. Some people call it God. Some people call it other things, but a higher power, spiritual. The second thing is discipline, doing the right thing at the right time for the right reason. Determination in never, ever giving up on your dreams and your goals, even though they may change. And then confidence, and I don't mean knowing everything or always being right, confidence enough to say to Mr. Wilson, I don't know this, tell me about this. That it takes confidence to be able to show your vulnerability that you don't know everything, and you never really did. So those are my watchwords. And I think I lay out another one, is being mindful to where you are and what you're doing. And these are principles that you learn from other people. That's my nickel.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. I know you got to get out of here, but it has been such a pleasure. Thank you again for sharing your heart, your wisdom, and your experience.
Thank you, sir.
You're muted.
You're on mute again.
I said, thank you.
Okay. Look forward to seeing you again.
Absolutely. Have a wonderful day. Please tell your wife I said thank you for the time.
I will. You're welcome. Goodbye.
Bye. Mr. Wilson, thank you so much for still being here. Thank you so much for just spending this time with us. I want to make sure that you have lasting words as well. So I'm going to put myself on mute and let you take the platform.
Well, it's, follow Mr. Jones, it's a little tough because in all honesty, those are a lot of the foundations that have gotten us to where we are now. And it is that faith. It is that determination. It's that no quit. It's that grind. It's that drive. It's that confidence in yourself. And what we have to, understand is men, we're not alone. And I think a lot of times men try to do it on their own because I've alluded to that before. We're raised to be, tough, and we handle this. We don't show emotion. We don't show these things because we just have to endure and take it, and that's going to be it. And it, sometimes it can take you to good places. Sometimes it can take you to bad places. My advice would be try to align yourself with like-minded individuals. That doesn't mean, understand like-minded doesn't mean we agree on everything, but like-minded individuals, those who are trying to strive for better, trying to reach back, that share some of the same values that you may share. One of mine is obviously a big one for me is giving back and reaching back for the youth. Everything I talk about, a lot of things that are centered on me are youth. I've done the corporate world. I've done all that. My job, my mission, my assignment, if you will, are these youth, these young men. And, I like chopping up with other guys and say, hey, yes, as coaches, we talk about different schemes. I'm like, how do you talk to that young man who's going to be a father? What do we tell that kid? How do we develop him when he says, no, I'm not doing this abortion thing. I want to know how to be a father. I didn't have one. So those, we have to reach back and be willing to be vulnerable in our own at times to help each other grow. Again, never give up. continue to be resilient. Um, I'm just a total believer that, and always have confidence in yourself, because if you don't have confidence in you, how can someone else have confidence in you? And confidence doesn't mean right all the time. It just means you have confidence and stand by, stand by your principles, stand by your morals, never lose them, never sacrifice them for a dollar. All money is not good money, and you just have to embrace other ideologies. You have to embrace other individuals. You have to be humble. You have to take it from your wife. That's okay. You will learn from your children. You have to be willing to learn. And I think if you're willing to learn, I always said a good teacher is a good listener. I've always believed that. I listen to my students. I have relationships with my students that when they walked in my room, I could tell by their face that they were having a good day, bad day. I knew what was going on with them because I engaged with them in a way that said, you matter. I see you. I care for you. I got you. And that's just the way I've always taught. That's the way I handle my business when it comes to that. And I'm, that's how it is in my friendship. Anybody calls me a friend, no, they can call me for anything. I'm reliable. I say I'm going to be there, I'm going to be there. Be a man of your word. Be a man of integrity. Be a man of honor. You'll be a man of, you'll grow. And you'll make a mark in this world. And I think we just have to continue to do it. I'm going to throw this out there to you. As you continue to grow this forum, I think it's wonderful. I truly, truly appreciate the opportunity to be a part of it. I know some of the guys, obviously, that you've already interviewed, and I'm learning more. And I don't care. We need to have a conference. We need to do something because we have too much wisdom and too much guidance out here to I don't want to say hoard it, but we have to find ways to share this information. We have to find ways to infiltrate and the world and to help educate young men and young husbands, young fathers. I've been married 32 years and raised 3 successful men. And, I have something to say about that. If they ask me, what did you do? I have something to say. I think would be, some nuggets you could take away, just like I could get nuggets from other people. And I think that's what we have to be willing to do. And I think to do that, you have to be humble and to accept it. And that's what I'll try to do. But I really, really appreciate this. And I really appreciate the forum. I really appreciate the opportunity for our voices to be heard in a different way. And so thank you, thank you, thank you.
No, thank you. Anything can be open, a platform can be there. It takes the person to lean in and say, yes.
Yes.
I'll speak on it. I'll be there. So it's a 50-50, right? Something's built, but somebody has to say, okay, I'll lean into it and make it happen as well. So I'll say welcome to you. You're absolutely welcome. But I also say thank you. You guys don't know, and I say guys meaning all of you, don't know how honored and humbled I am. I never knew. I keep saying that this is supposed to be 30 days, and it is so much bigger than just the 30 days that I originally had in my little mind to happen. It's so much bigger in what's happening. And I actually had the conversation today, Trent, with a good friend of mine who was also a speaker on the Voices of a Black Man. And he said, well, where are you going with this? What's happening? What's going on? And I told him, I said, this is bigger than me. It's bigger than all of us. I'm finding a place where connection can happen, but not just connection. We can do some real change.
Yes.
Because
yes.
All of you men that have been on here, you all are no joke. You all are in your own right. You all carry your load, whatever that is, and the influence, the resources, knowing that you're not the only one who's thinking that way or fighting for certain things or trying to make certain things happen. I think that goes back to Mr. Jones when he talked about plugging into those things that were already there.
Right.
And so I see with this platform that there's some things that as a group, we need to plug into some different things that are already there and happening and support each other so that it can not just be successful for that man or for the men of this group, but for the men of the world.
I agree.
So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, to our viewers, I want to say thank you so much for being here. Thank you for listening to a roundtable, Saturday roundtable discussion. I hope that you got to see through some different lenses today. I know I did. And truly, honestly, I'm just going to tell y'all that some stuff with my husband got cleared up today in this conversation. Just with Mr. Jones saying sometimes why men don't speak and they're just silent, because a lot of times we see men being silent and we just consider that as being absent. And that was a great thing to see through a different lens, to understand through a different lens. If you look through some lenses today and realize that there's some biases there, whether they're unconscious or biases that you already know, I'm urging you to just take it a step further. What actions can you take to lean in to get a little bit more educated, get a little bit more understanding, and start changing those biases? You see, it takes you and me to look at our biases first. Then we can help change family, community, and the world to make it a better place, not just for us to live in today, as Mr. Jones talked about. It's not just about today, but it's about tomorrow, your kids, your grandkids, the future. What does that look like? We shouldn't be fighting the same fights tomorrow that we're fighting today. I'm CK James. Thank you for being with us. This has been the Voices of a Black Man. Tune in to our website, www.voicesofablackman.com. There you can send us messages. You could be a speaker if you like, and you can listen to other speakers and what they've had to say. Take care. Thank you so much.